So Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, the Oregon Health Authority is a government agency that coordinates medical care and social well-being in the Beaver State. During the pandemic, OHA was responsible for coordinating Oregon's vaccination drive and disseminating information about COVID-19, both vital tasks. The agency's Office for Equity and Inclusion, however, prefers not to rush the business of government. In fact, the office's program manager delayed a meeting with partner organizations on the stated grounds that, quote, urgency is a white supremacy value. In an email I obtained exclusively, Regional Health Equity Coalition Program Manager Danielle Droppers informed the community that a scheduled conversation between OHA officials and relevant members of the public would not take place as planned. Thank you for your interest in attending the community conversation between regional health equity coalitions and community advisory councils to discuss the community investment collaboratives, wrote Droppers. We recognize that urgency is a white supremacy value that can get in the way of more intentional and thoughtful work, and we want to attend to this dynamic. Therefore, we will reach out at a later date to reschedule. Droppers did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Maybe she wasn't rushing to answer my email because rushing is racist. I don't know. The email, by the way, was sent from Droppers' state government email address. And yes, it drew sharp rebukes from many who received it. One such community member replied that, well, as a person of color, I am calling BS. Another recipient, a health equity manager at a medical group, said she was thrown by the claim. Please educate me on what the state means by urgency is a white supremacy value, she wrote. Also, I would like to know how this gets in the way of our work. I have struggled all morning with how to communicate the reason for the postponement to our community. Droppers did not follow up on her initial email with an explanation, but a county health official did, responding that I too was taken by surprise by this statement and decided to investigate it for further comprehension, wanted to share a link that I found. The link redirects to a website that purportedly identifies aspects of white supremacy culture. The website was conceived and designed by Tima Okun, a white anti-racist educator. Tima Okun is the reason I am bringing this incident to your attention because it is not remotely a freak occurrence or a random act of craziness. Okun's incredibly reductive views are everywhere in education, in diversity training for corporations. Now we know inside local government. It was Okun who popularized the idea that several benign and widespread traits are actually characteristics of white supremacy. Among these are preferring quantity over quality, wanting things to be written down, perfectionism, becoming defensive, and yes, possessing a sense of urgency. Just look at this infographic from her website. It lists objectivity and fear of open conflict as literal bottles of white supremacist poison. Again, it would be easy to make fun of these ideas and simply move on if they hadn't infected the entire diversity and equity industry, but they have. Okun's work makes frequent appearances in educational equity workshops. Here's one such training session that was hosted by Washington University in St. Louis.
Free service from the Brown School at Washington University in St. Louis. This is a free service that connects community and stimulates conversations and shares ideas. And we began offering these programs at the start of pandemic, and we have now hosted over 160 of these free programs as a resource for the community.
The title of that video is Professionalism a Racist Construct? I think we could agree that no, it's not, and just move on, but the training continues for another hour. Remarkably similar work by Judith Katz, who is also a self-professed anti-racism expert, was included on the website for the National Museum of African American History and Culture. This infographic, which I admit is more visually appealing than the poison chart, nevertheless asserts that emphasizing the scientific method, believing in hard work, and here it is again, timeliness, are aspects of white culture. Now, neither Katz nor Okun's work is technically critical race theory, which is this new catch-all term used by many conservatives to describe just any and all progressive anti-racism activism that they don't like. But it's often adjacent to CRT in diversity, equity, and inclusion training materials and has clearly made inroads in education settings. So here's the thing, and this point should really be sufficient to shut down this entire ideology. Urgency is not an aspect of white supremacy. Hard work is not an aspect of white supremacy. Preferring that things be written down, not white supremacists. These are just traits found across many cultures, many ethnic groups. Some people are more punctual than others, but it has nothing to do with how white they are or how much whiteness is part of their identity. In fact, and I cannot emphasize this enough, if you're giving seminars and lectures and workshops, the point of which is to convince everyone that writing things down or obeying reason and logic or being punctual are all white people characteristics, well, aren't you just sort of the racist? Aren't you essentially promoting a racist view? Aren't you trying to convince people to be more racist? This is a good example of ideological activists coming to resemble the exact people they claim to oppose. In any case, among their many flaws, Okun's views appear to be slowing down the operations of a taxpayer-funded agency in Oregon. The community's frustration, understandable. Government employees who are unprepared for meetings should not cite white supremacy as their excuse. If you're not prepared for a meeting, I think that's on you. So I don't know if you've encountered this kind of stuff, Olayemi, in out in the world, in the workplace, but I find these trainings very poisonous. So I'm curious to hear your view. But I don't it's made up. It's not been based in any science or any kind of statistics or any kind of looking at people. These are just traits that are across all kinds of human experience.
I guess the first thing I want to say is, people have this knee-jerk reaction to any time someone points out something as racist that they haven't heard before. They are immediately offended and upset and overwhelmed, and they want to start an immediate rebuke as, everything is being said as racist. But here's what I want to say. If racism is a pervasive aspect of our society, obviously there are going to be things that are steeped in racism that you don't even realize it. It's not an indictment on everybody that might be engaged in this. It's more so let's have a conversation about how some of these constructs come up. And when it comes to professionalism, I want to say that was a specific topic, in professionalism being racist, and I see you feel outraged by that. But there is a lot about professionalism that is constructed in around whiteness, right? Things that Black hair is considered not professional, depending on how I have my hair color, your aesthetic. There are different ways that Black people and non-white people are told to mute their inherent aesthetics or conduct themselves in ways that are not cultural, that are very much so akin to what is whiteness and white groups or whatever, and are told that this is unprofessional. But really what it is trying to conform certain groups to a particular way of life or how you go about things. And as far as, I don't know the ins and outs of all of the different things she's talking about or why she's making these particular arguments. I could maybe see in terms of saying urgency is akin to white supremacy. I don't know if I would make that particular broad sweeping generalization, but I will say in our medical care, we have a major issue with racism in our medical care. Black women receive some of the worst medical care in this country. Our maternal death rates are 4 times that of developed nations and other places. And a lot of that is because Black women are being dismissed by medical professionals, just, rushed out the room, not having their complaints taken seriously. So when you look at it in terms of something like that, you could see why one would think, yes, urgency can be akin to leading to these certain kinds of results. I'm not as inclined as you are to find it as laughable and dismissive. I think too often we don't want to hear that things might be this, or we might have to reflect on something or see where racism could lie because it feels personal, but it's not personal. Lots of us, right? White, Black, all of us can internalize certain things that we're taught and perpetuate in our society. And so I think workshops like this are meant to show us you might not be seeing it like this. You might have been taught the same kind of way. It doesn't mean you are a racist. It does not mean you were intentionally set out or the people requesting this meeting are racist or that's their end goal. What I think they're trying to show you is certain things you're not even knowing of could have these kinds of results.
But is the broad concept the racist? Yes, you can. I think it's certainly racist to treat Black women, for instance, that they're not dressed professionally. Mm-hmm. That is racist. But
yeah.
Look, the concept of looking professional or being professional is not racist itself.
What's considered looking professional?
It can be applied in a racist way.
What's considered, but that's my thing.
Right. What's we consider can be, but
if
not
professionalism in and of itself. But yes, but if the construct itself is designed around an aesthetic or certain people that exclude certain people or makes different things about them inherently rendered unprofessional, then yes, it is, right? How many times, I'm sure we could look at the comments and we're gonna see people, they don't like my nails are unprofessional, my jewelry is this, my hair color is this, and all these different, things that they're gonna engage in. And why is that? It wouldn't be considered unprofessional in a Black community, but you're gonna see those comments like that because unprofessionalism has very much so been based and defined around whiteness. That's just true. That's the truth.
But is urgency? Aren't people of all races sometimes urgent and sometimes not? How is whiteness
again,
built.
I haven't had the conversation. I didn't take this workshop, right? Legal aid didn't tell me urgency is racist. I told you where I could see how one could make that argument in certain contexts, and depending on what context they provided, I didn't attend this workshop. Who knows? But I do think that, well, I can't say urgency is something like, if we're talking the stereotypes and things like that, urgency is not associated with my community. All right, we're very much so, right? CPT, that's what they say our time.
But we laugh at stereotypes because they're silly. They're not.
Well, do we laugh at stereotypes? There are a whole lot of people working off of stereotypes and assumptions. So I will say there is a lot of times when you have these rigid rules, I think what they're really talking about is the rigidity of these things, right? When you have these kind of rigid systems in place, like professionalism, this time, this, and the next thing, they can lead for these kinds of exclusions and things in application. But like I said, I'm not a defense attorney.
Being professional, being on time, being objective, all the things they're listing are things that most people consider to have value, to be good things. So I think it's wrong to say yes, white culture has all these good things that people value.
Just because you're taught something in a blanket way, right? Professionalism is good, all these different things. And so we have those as ideals. Like I said, it depends on how you define professionalism. And for a lot of people, they recognize that professionalism has been designed to exclude and mute us in significant ways. I'm saying, yes, if you look at it as just this general blanket, this term, and you don't do more of an exploration, it's going to seem outrageous to you when someone points out, hey, in application, a lot of these things can be racist and exclusionary. So I don't know, not my fight.
Is this the best way best and most nuanced way to discuss? Like, these people seem incapable of nuance. These couple educators I've mentioned, these charts that say,
but these are charts. These people are conducting entire trainings. I'm sure conversations are being had, right? Like
based on ideas they invented. There's no science behind this whatsoever.
Just because you have an inherent skepticism to someone that's an anti-racist educator or these areas of discipline or areas of scholarship does not make them without merit or completely made up. People are in fact educated in this. Social sciences are a real thing. They're not just coming up with it in thin air just because it's not.
It's junk science. I think it's junk science promoting actual racism, but. We have an actual disagreement on the show.
Okay.
We have a disagreement.
All right, Robby. All right.
I'm looking forward to your radar coming up next.